The air inside the luxurious first-class cabin was calm, quiet, almost too perfect. Passengers settled into wide leather seats, champagne glasses clinked softly, and a gentle hum from the engines whispered through the walls of the plane. Everything looked exactly how it should be on a premium cross-country flight, but that illusion was about to be shattered in the most unexpected way. At seat 2A sat a man named David. Tall, composed, dressed in a tailored navy blue suit with polished brown shoes. He looked like the kind of traveler who belonged in first class. He held a copy of The Economist in one hand and a phone in the other, his eyes scanning through an email as the boarding process continued. To anyone watching, David looked like a businessman preparing for a meeting that could determine the future of several companies. But beneath that quiet presence was a man who had faced more than his fair share of assumptions, prejudice, and judgment. David was black. And that simple fact, unfortunately, still made him a target for suspicion. In places he had every right to be. He was focused on his screen when the flight attendant approached. Her name was Melissa. In her early 40s, she wore the crisp airline uniform with a badge that read, "Lead Cabin Crew." She looked at David, then at her manifest, and something in her demeanor shifted. She tilted her head slightly, furrowed her brow, and with a tight-lipped smile, leaned closer to him. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her voice flat and edged with doubt. "Are you sure you're in the right seat?" David looked up slowly, polite but clearly caught off guard. "Yes," he replied, showing his boarding pass. "Seat 2A. Melissa's eyes scanned the pass, then his face again. "This is first class," she added, as though he hadn't understood the implication the first time. "I know," David answered, still calm. "That's what I booked." There was a pause. Around them, a few nearby passengers had started to glance over. It wasn't loud yet. It wasn't a scene, but something was brewing, and it had nothing to do with seat assignments. Melissa stood there for a second too long, blinking at the boarding pass like it was playing tricks on her. Then she forced a smile, nodded curtly, and walked away. For a moment, it seemed like that would be the end of it. It wasn't. 10 minutes later, with most of the passengers seated, she came back with a supervisor. They both stood over David like he'd done something wrong, like he'd slipped into first class when nobody was looking. This time, Melissa didn't bother with politeness. "Sir, we need you to come with us," she said sharply. "You're causing confusion and may have boarded incorrectly." David frowned, sat up straighter. "Is this about my ticket again?" he asked, voice still controlled. "Because I've shown it already. Seat 2A, first class. What's the problem?" Passengers now fully turned toward the front. Someone muttered under their breath. A woman in seat 2B clutched her handbag a little tighter. Melissa's tone grew louder. "Sir, if you can't comply, we will need to remove you from the flight. This is for everyone's comfort and safety." That's when it happened. Something in David's face shifted. Not fear, not anger, but disappointment. He reached into his briefcase, pulled out a sleek leather folder, and calmly handed it to the supervisor. Inside were documents, thick ones, legal, corporate, and signed. The supervisor flipped through them. His expression went from curious to stunned, then panicked. Meanwhile, Melissa stood frozen, still convinced she was right. Until she wasn't. Across the aisle, a teenaged boy, about 17, watched the entire thing unfold. His name was Jaden. He was quiet, polite, and traveling alone for the first time. Dressed in a hoodie and jeans, he didn't look like someone people noticed. But he noticed everything. Jaden saw the way David was spoken to, saw the stares, saw the discomfort that didn't come from anything David did, but from who he was. Jaden had felt that kind of treatment before, in schools, in stores, and sometimes just walking down the street. And even now, as the cabin returned to its false calm, he couldn't stop thinking about it. Behind him, a pregnant woman boarded late, breathing heavily, a little flustered. Her ticket had her assigned to a seat several rows back, but as she walked by, her eyes flicked toward Jaden. He looked, then their eyes met. Then he did something that changed everything. Ma'am, he said quietly, rising from his seat. You can take this one. It's closer to the front. The woman blinked, surprised. Are you sure? Jaden smiled. Yeah, I don't mind. It's just a seat. She hesitated, then nodded. Thank you. He helped her get settled, then headed back toward Coach, not knowing that his small act of kindness had just put him on a collision course with something huge. Later, after landing, that same woman handed Jaden a folded note before walking away. No name, no explanation, just a note. When he opened it, the words inside made him stop cold. His hands trembled. His breath caught in his throat. Because what she wrote would not only change Jaden's life, it would link him to David in a way no one could have predicted. And it would expose a truth about Melissa, the airline, and a $700 million mistake that had already begun to spiral out of control. The cameras hadn't caught it. The headlines hadn't come yet. But by the time they did, it would be too late. To undo the damage, the fallout was already in motion, and no one saw it coming, especially not Melissa. Want me to continue with the next part? Jaden sat in the back row of Coach now, his knees pressed against the seat in front of him. The seat wasn't broken, but it sure felt like it. After giving up his spot near the front, this tight space felt even more cramped. Still, he didn't regret it. The woman had looked so tired, so uncomfortable. He figured it was a small gesture, something his late grandmother would have smiled at. Be kind when it costs you nothing, she used to say. He took those words seriously. He just didn't expect they'd come back to him like this. The note she gave him was still folded in his pocket. He hadn't read it right away. He didn't think much of it until she pressed it into his hand before stepping off the plane. Her face had been calm, but her eyes said something else. Something he couldn't figure out yet. Now, as he stood alone near the baggage claim, he finally opened it. The handwriting was neat, graceful, and written in ink that had slightly smudged at the corners. Just a few lines, but they were enough to stop him cold. You don't know me, but I know who you are now. I've seen your name before. There's someone you need to meet. What you did today didn't go unnoticed, and it's going to mean more than you think. Please don't ignore this. At the bottom, there was a phone number. No name, no explanation. Jaden stared at it confused. His heart beat faster than it should have. What was she talking about? How could she know who he was? He was just a teenager. Just a student from Atlanta. His name didn't mean anything, at least that's what he thought. He turned the paper over again and again, but there was nothing else. No clue, no hint of what was coming. Back in the terminal, David walked. Briskly, his face unreadable. His phone rang 3 times before he answered it. They tried to remove me from the flight, he said quietly into the receiver. Same way it always starts, a voice responded on the other end, calm but firm. Do you want to escalate? Yuri? David glanced around. Not yet, but it's bigger than I thought. Their staff isn't just untrained, they're careless. One wrong move and this could have turned into a legal disaster. They don't know who they're dealing with. He hung up and headed toward a black SUV waiting outside. The driver opened the door without a word. David got in, dropped his bag beside him, and pulled out a different phone. A secure one. He typed out a short message and sent it to 3 people. Incident. Confirmed. Documents were shown. Stand by for legal options, possible breach of contract. To the public, David was a quiet, wealthy investor. But behind closed doors, he was a decision-maker in a powerful tech partnership that the airline had been fighting to secure for over a year, a deal worth $700 million. And Melissa had just handed it over, without knowing it. That night, David didn't sleep. He spent hours reviewing internal reports, rewatching security footage from the gate area, and calling his legal team. Every detail mattered now. Not because he wanted revenge, but because this wasn't just about him. It was about how often things like this happened to people who didn't have the power to push back. But David did, and he wasn't going to let it slide. Meanwhile, Jaden sat at a small kitchen table at his aunt's house, staring at the note. Again. His mom had passed away 2 years ago, and his aunt had taken him in. She was good to him, gave him space, supported his dream to study computer science. But she didn't have answers for what was going on now. "Who gave that to you?" she asked, sipping tea across from him. "A pregnant lady on the flight," he said slowly. "I gave her my seat. She wrote this. I don't know how she knows anything about me." His aunt frowned, taking the note and scanning it carefully. "This looks serious. You gonna call the number?" Jaden hesitated. "I don't know. What if it's a mistake?" "Then you'll know," she replied. "But what if it's not?" Jaden looked at the phone. The number stared back at him. It felt like a door he wasn't sure he should open. But curiosity had a way of eating at people. He dialed. It rang once, twice, then someone picked up. "I was hoping you'd call," said a woman's voice. Jaden's throat tightened. "Who are you?" "I work with someone who saw what happened today, and we've been watching certain things closely. There's a bigger picture here, Jaden. You're part of it now." He sat up straighter. "I don't understand. You don't have to, not yet. But that man in first class, the one they tried to embarrass, his name is David Merrick. He's not just any passenger. He's a senior partner in a global investment firm. He's also the person who holds the final vote on a multi-million-dollar deal with that airline. Or, he was." Jaden was silent. The voice continued. "And what happened on that flight? It's already being documented, investigated, and you, by stepping up and doing what you did, you drew the attention of someone very important. Someone who believes you have potential." Jaden swallowed. "What do you mean? Potential for what?" There was a pause. "Let's just say, kindness, humility, and awareness are rare in rooms where big decisions are made. David noticed you. He asked about you." Jaden's heart raced. "This isn't just about a seat," she added. "It's about how people behave when no one is watching. You passed a test you didn't even know you were taking." Jaden leaned back, stunned. None of it made sense, and yet it felt like something real was shifting. Across the city, David sat with his legal counsel and two silent partners. The mood was heavy. "Are you pulling the deal?" one of them asked. David tapped his pen on the table. "I'm not pulling anything yet, but I am making noise." He turned to his assistant. "Prepare a statement, not for the press, for the board. I want them to know exactly how their frontline team treats people. And I want names, everything Melissa did. Document." Should we inform their CEO?" David gave a cold smile. "Oh, they'll know. By morning." He stood looking out the window. They built an image around excellence, around class. But today they showed their real face, and now it's going to cost them. The woman on the phone with Jaden smiled, softly as she listened to his breathing. "You're part of something now," she repeated. "Don't be afraid of it." "But what happens next?" he asked quietly. She paused. "That depends on how deep this goes." And it was going deep. What no one realized yet was that Melissa had been warned before. Quiet complaints, HR notes, even a formal sensitivity training session after an incident 2 years earlier involving a Latino family in business class. Nothing stuck. Nothing changed. But this time, the stakes were higher. Much higher, because the man she humiliated was no ordinary traveler. And the teen who gave up his seat. He was about to walk into a world he never imagined. A world of boardrooms, contracts, and hidden power plays. A world where quiet moments like giving up a seat echo louder than anyone thinks. And the $700 million fallout? That had only just begun.